Hello, everybody. My name is Joel Filderman, and welcome to the Dog Trainers Connection. I'm not a dog trainer, but these other people you see here are. We get together, we discuss a topic, come up with some thoughts, some ideas, and sometimes some answers, but we always have an interesting discussion. For today's topic, well, it's another day, it's another law. But this time it's not in the States, this time it's in Germany. And I don't know if people have read about this, but there's a law that they're planning on passing in Germany that dogs must be exercised 2 times daily for a minimum of 1 hour daily. There are other things as well. You're not allowed to tether a dog for a long period of time, and you cannot leave the dog home all day. You must take care of the dog several times a day. So I know we've discussed laws. I know we've discussed how to take care of dogs, and one of the reasons that I found this interesting was the president of the German Animal Welfare Association said that this didn't go far enough. They said that, as we've discussed in some ways as well, that it should that they should require proof that owners have some knowledge of the responsibility to care for a dog. Now, there are other things involved in this law as well. There are things about breeders, and there are things about puppy breeders and showing dogs. But, and to be fair, there are a lot of people who say that this isn't necessarily for individual owners, it's more for kennels and things to that effect. But there is the possibility it could be for individual owners as well. So my question to you trainers today is this something that we should consider here? Is there something that we should say, okay, you know what? Enough of this, enough of abandoning your dog, enough of this. And if you want a dog, here's what you have to do. And we've discussed that, but I'd like to know, in relation to the fact that there actually seems to be a country that is planning on doing that, what do you think? Who'd like to start today?
Okay, I'll be the guinea pig.
All right.
So, how do you enforce someone walking their dog twice a day, right?
And that's one of the big questions coming out.
And that's true with any legislation. The Unchained movement here in America, where we're trying, there's been more and more states and municipalities that are adopting these unchained laws where dogs can't be out on a tether unsupervised, things along those lines, which I think is good and it's valuable. And I would say it's a little easier to enforce something like that. In the same way, parking authority would drive past and, maybe put an X on the tire to see if the tire moved. And, and then again, that's just a superficial thing that popped into my head.
Sure.
But you can visually see a dog being tethered. How are they going to enforce? Hey, Bob, did you walk your dog? Yeah, I did. Oh, when? We didn't see you. Oh, you must have been off shift. I think it's great ideally, but the other part of the legislative process is, again, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a politician, but there's always the authors and supporters of the legislation, and then there's the opposition.
Sure.
So a lot of times the people who are trying to pass this legislation, they'll load it up with all sorts of stuff and hope that they get a few in the negotiation, right? Yeah. It happens here in America. We won't get into that. Dems and Republicans always trying to throw other crap into a bill where it doesn't belong, right? This is a little different because it's still, at least it's animal related. I think that they would probably forego or concede. Okay, we're not going to enforce walking your dog twice a day for an hour, but you can't tether your dog. I think that's probably part of the negotiation. And enforcement is always an issue, regardless. That's why when they talk about adding new cruelty laws, which is wonderful. Obviously I'm a rescue guy too.
Sure.
So I'm always for cruelty laws. But when they introduce something that can already be prosecuted if enforced, why add another thing that's not going to be enforced, right? So that's kind of the thing. And maybe pet education programs might be a good alternative.
Okay.
And then you also have to consider, you know, I, I mean, my old dog, he couldn't walk twice a day for an hour.
And that's something that certainly has come up in when they've
Physically, it
written
was
about this.
physically impossible and borderline inhumane if I did that to him.
Hmm.
So, you know, there's a lot to unfold.
And
And
then
I know that,
weather involved and things to that effect as well.
yeah, and, you
So
know,
what happens if it's, you're having a heat wave for a week, how do you get, then, okay, so you're supposed to exercise your dog for a minimum of an hour a day, twice daily, meaning that the whole thing is an hour. But, so what does that mean? So Steve, is this too much, too little? What do you think?
Well, I instantly go to the other side of this. Like, so my brother-in-law lives there in Berlin,
Mm-hmm.
and he has two dogs. He takes them with him everywhere.
Right.
Is there going to be a problem if he keeps them with him? Is there going to all of a sudden be an ordinance that says that's too much for the dog? If you just flip it for a second, it's like, look, I'm sure we'll all agree that people could and should spend more time with their dogs, quality time. I do know that typically from like, hanging out with all those Hudson guys for all those years and stuff, they sometimes consider it's about contact. So I don't know if exercise is like, maybe it's not exercise. Maybe it's contact, right? You got to be with your dog. You got to be with your dog. You can't just leave it like all those hours. The dog needs contact. I don't know if it would be more about physical exercise or just relationship related. The other thing is that they definitely have a much more lax thing going on when it comes to having the dog with you and going to restaurants and all that. Dogs are not as pushed out
Mm-hmm.
in Germany as they are in so many other places. Dogs
Okay.
are pretty much everywhere. And it's fascinating because they seem to blend in real well. I know a lot of dogs in New York. You tried to like take them everywhere, there would be like chaos,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
chaos. But in Germany, you take your dog to a restaurant, it seems to like go under the table. You don't even know there's a dog there. There could be a dog under every table. There's not a lot of problems somehow. It's because that's how they're acclimated, I'm sure, from the very beginning. This is what we do. This is where you go when I do this. And I mean, it's good for the dogs, I mean, they get to hang around because they're allowed. So I think that it's easier for them to try and start to push it a little bit because dogs are allowed in a lot of places. So
Mm-hmm.
I can see where they want to push it. And I like the idea that they're saying you can't keep a dog in this other way where you just like take it out in the morning and then go to work all day and then come back and watch TV. And, I think they have it.
And they have stated that is based upon scientific research. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, morality and all that other
Mm-hmm.
stuff. You don't have to like forget about research. I mean,
Okay.
it's not a can of soup. You just can't like, treat it like that. It's a beast. It has needs and fulfillment and all these things. And I think that they're a little more tuned in. They're the people who cook for their dogs and take them
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. So they're already more sensitive, way more sensitive than we are when it comes to the dogs. And so if they're pushing it, it's because they're finding they have a population that's becoming less sensitive to it, and they
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure that they kind of keep that animal thing like out there. I think that's where they're going. But like Jeff says,
Well, it does seem that it's a little bit more commercial centered as well, because one of the other things is that they're talking about that breeders can only have 3 litters at a time. But the other thing in relation to what you were talking about the contact is that puppies must have 4 hours of human company to ensure socialization daily. So,
now, what's the employment like in Germany? Because I know some countries, they have different employment hours than we do here in the States. Where like we're pretty used to be 9 to 5. Now
mm-hmm.
regular employment hours are 8 to 6 pretty much
Mm-hmm.
in the States, right? So in some European countries it varies. They have like 4-hour shifts. They go home for dinner, come back. I don't know
I
how it
don't
is
know.
Yeah, so that might be
That's
something
an
that,
interesting point.
you know, and I don't, maybe it's Italy where, or they have condensed work weeks where those laws would be appropriate for a particular country as opposed to trying that here where people are working 70 hours a week.
Well, it does seem that they're trying to protect the dogs and protect that. One of the other parts that I didn't talk about is that they're talking about banning showing dogs who, as the quote unquote, have tortured breeding characteristics. And in particular, most of the articles I read were about pugs and about the brachycephalic. So, but they also were talking about banning dogs that have cropped tails and dogs that have cropped ears as well, so that those weren't going to be allowed to show. So is that protecting the dogs? Is that protecting the people, Bonnie? What does all that mean?
Well, I'm for the breed thing, I'm going to defer to Steve on that.
Okay.
Just because I know that's a big area of expertise with him and breeds and breeding. But what I just wanted to ditto something that, excuse me, that Jeff said. I think here in this country, the U.S., having more education for adopters in the shelter, somehow required courses, education, you know, to be as popular as Cesar Millan was, his show, to make it that popular that people learn what we all talk about, that dogs can't be left alone for a long time. What do you do if you adopt a dog and you work 70 hours a week? How do you deal with that? Should you adopt the dog then? The amount of exercise and the quality time with people and the contact that Steve was talking about. I mean, I think in this country, you know, there's not enough money spent on the behavior aspect of dogs and how to keep dogs happy in homes. Because you could say, you know, when you were saying walk a dog for an hour a day, it might be a really horrible walk for that dog because maybe
Well,
they don't keep
it's
them
actually
close.
exercise. It's
Yeah,
exercise.
but so somebody could say I walked 2 miles with their dog, but their dog never got to sniff, got to go to the end of the leash and kind of look around and explore. So I think you need to teach people what is a good exercise walk. Is it a training walk? Is it an exercise walk? Is it a sniffing walk? You know, so I think those things are important in this country to teach people. And I agreed with Jeff with that. It's putting money into educating people about what it means to adopt a dog and what you need, or to buy one. And you get a puppy, what's that going to mean in your life? And
would you require that?
Yes.
Okay.
I would require that, and there would be funds in the shelters and in community centers, and make that really available for people.
Okay.
I would require it, absolutely.
All right.
Ideally.
Are there any organizations that do? Do any of the major organizations require you to take some sort of a class or some sort of an information that if you're going to adopt a dog, these are the things that you need to know? I don't know the answer to that. I'm asking that
Well, I
legit.
mean, a lot of like the big wigs, their websites usually have like an educational page on there.
Okay.
You know, I mean, a lot of dog food companies have a basic care educational blurb on there. I mean, there's a zillion of people on YouTube, on Instagram, TikTok. I mean, you name it.
But it's not a required thing.
It's not required.
No,
not a required thing.
A lot of rescues don't even do adequate reference checks, in my opinion.
Meaning?
You know,
that they're just not going to do, that they don't do it, or that it's just not really that done in
vetting adopters.
Okay.
So, you know, I mean, you know, and
Go ahead, Steve.
This could get ugly real fast, and I'm going to tell you how. And I'm sure my experience as well, I'm sure you've all had this, you know, dogs get adopted, just like if you have puppies, right? You got a litter of puppies, you need them all to go, right? At the end of the day, they all got to go.
Mm-hmm.
You're the breeder, you live with them for 8 weeks. You know who's who in the box.
Sure.
You know who's independent, who's this, who's that. If you
Yeah.
don't know their personalities, then you shouldn't be breeding dogs, right?
Right.
So these people are breeders. They feel that they're good at it and all that, and some of them are, of course, but every puppy has to go. Now, there's going to be the breeder or the rescue guy that tells, this is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
This
Sure.
might be the shortcoming on this dog, but a lot of them, there are no shortcomings. Pick the one you like, you know, and then they let them pick them based on whatever, color,
Right.
size, this, that. But they know, looking at the family, that this is not the right match, but they need to get it out.
Right.
So I've seen a lot of dogs, rescue and otherwise, that where dangerous dogs were actually placed into homes with not a word. Now, you know, we could talk about education and all that, but you get the wrong dog in your
You're
house.
right.
I don't
That-
really
you're
care
right.
how smart you are or what you think you know. Most people looking to adopt a dog want a social, friendly. In their prayers, it would be housebroken,
Okay.
right? Have no bad habits and all that, which we know there aren't too many of these. But if we can just say you adopted a social, friendly dog, has no education, then it's on the new owner to educate it and acclimate it into the home and do all the good, cool stuff. You know, let it sniff and, you know, exercise and
Right.
relation, all the good things. But they all have to
Sure.
go. And if you are in a situation where you have a dog that's okay with you because you feed it every day at rescue or whatever, but you know another person comes walking past this pen, things aren't real pretty, right? You take it out and maybe this dog's going to come.
Right.
You still got to go, right? Because
Right.
you're not going to put it down, right? You're not going to put it down. And that's the ugly part of this whole thing right here, is that they all need to find a home. If that's your attitude, they all do. And I'm like, no, some of them need like actual, honest to God, sanctuary situations.
Right.
Or they're going to be moved around. People are going to get hurt. The dog's going to be hurt in the end because
Mhm.
it's moved and moved and moved.
So, Steve, do you think, excuse me for interrupting, but in Germany, is it not as much of an issue there so they can go further and say, let's make these laws? Because here, dogs are adopted out that are inappropriate for the people who adopt them. And there's no method of making sure that that doesn't happen. So do you think in Germany, they're better at that?
Well, they have certain, I know with the working dogs, they have big rules, like
Mhm.
rules, right? So you
Okay.
can't, German Shepherds, you can't breed two German Shepherds that aren't entitled. You know, they just don't do
Okay.
it.
Don't they have breed-specific legislation in Germany too?
I believe they do. Yes.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
And unfair, like
I
grossly
think we
unfair.
discussed that actually at one point.
Right, because they have a bully breed ban, and when they actually
Mhm.
did the research of what breed is most likely to bite in terms of reported bites, it's the German Shepherd, who's not
Right.
on the list, who's
Right.
not on the breed ban list.
Right.
So, you know, there's some politics, obvious politics there.
Well,
which are-
well, Steve, one of the questions I have regarding this is going back to the breeds and going back to what I was talking about showing the breeds and showing the different types of breeds and et cetera. And one of the reasons why they're talking about doing that is to reduce the popularity of those dogs, like the brachycephalic dog that can be, you know, that it's overbred and that has problems. So is that necessarily a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to like go back to the old days when a brachiocephalic dog still had a face.
Okay.
It's shorter than everybody else, but it wasn't flat.
Uh-huh.
We weren't jamming their nose down their throat. I mean,
Right.
so they need to like straighten these breeders out so that they
Okay.
make dogs healthier.
Hmm.
In shepherds, I'll say this: a breed warden comes and examines the puppies. So if you had 12 puppies, maybe 6 of them are going to get tattooed in paper. That's it. The others become pet dogs, not breedable. So they're looking at it right then. The best of your litter will get tattooed and papered. The others, we can tell you right now, shouldn't be bred.
Mm.
And so they don't get tattooed and papered. They become pet dogs.
And is that breed standards? Is that temperament? Is that all of it? Is that what they're trained to do? What is it that they get the stamp for?
well, the breed warden is the one who comes and looks, right? Now they're talking to the breeder. It's not a sole decision, but together they work out if you've got more than X number of puppies, whatever that is, I forget, that are going to get tattooed and papered, who's the ones who are not. And then I think they work that out together, but at least it's an attempt to try to produce a better German Shepherd dogs anyway in that breed, right? That's just one breed. They got a lot of breeds come out of Germany. I think that it's about time that they, got with the stop cropping, stop docking the tail. Why would you do that?
And that again is something that they're talking about doing. Yeah.
Right. Now in the United States, they changed the rules a long time ago that say it's okay to show a dog with natural ears and natural tail. That's what they say. But have you seen a dog that's been shown, like a Great Dane or a Doberman or with a tail and natural ear? I haven't seen that. Not at Westminster. The big shows you'll see in the crop dock dogs. But in Europe, where honestly, I just find them more sensitive when it comes to these things. And we need to catch up, I think, a little bit with that.
Okay. All right. So we're coming to the end. I'm going to make this real quick and real simple. Do we need to look at doing a law in the same vein as what Germany's doing? Yes or no, Steve?
No, we can't, we have trouble with laws.
Okay. All right. Am I going to get any different response from anybody else on that?
Maybe from me.
Okay. And what do you think?
The law that every rescue group, again, like Jeff said, I don't know how you can enforce it, but that every rescue group, every shelter, every 501c3 must insist on 3 classes for people who take one of their dogs.
Okay.
And that if they don't go and that they don't learn and contribute and pass a test maybe and talk about, then they can't get the dog. That's it.
Okay.
Period. So I think that should be a law.
Jeff, you got anything to add?
I respectfully disagree wholeheartedly with Bonnie to put that kind of onus on rescues to commit that type of time and energy into people who may not even adopt a dog and omit breeders from that equation.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, any industry, you're going to have responsible aspects of the industry and irresponsible aspects of the industry. But you can't clump rescue without, breeders too.
It would be funded. This is not coming from their money.
Yeah, it don't work like that, Bonnie.
Well,
Okay.
The majority of our resources is time, our time, right? These big conglomerates, they might have the resources and the manpower to do it. When you're a little rescue, we're doing the best we can. And you know what? If there's a law that you're going to pass, we're going to abide by it because we're already responsible. So, you know what I mean? You can't throw that on rescues and omit breeders from anything like that.
no, I agree with that.
So,
Okay. And that seems like a good place to stop. So I think we had a very interesting discussion today. I think that it's probably something that we might revisit at a later time because this law is actually not supposed to go into effect until early next year. And it may change by then. And it might be interesting to see what those changes are by then, to see what they've changed and what they decided. But I do think that, as we quite often say, that education certainly is a strong point that people need if they are going to get a dog. And where that comes from, we'll see. But on that, I'd like to thank you for being here, trainers. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. And please don't forget to like this video if you want to. And also, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot now. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Give me that Kong.